Okay, so I thought I was gonna be repotting this Calathea Jungle Cat right outside, but it just started pouring rain in, so I thought, guess it's time to move the shop inside. So here we go. I just got this new jelly stuff. It's a crystal gel, and what it's supposed to do is it's a soil amendment. And it's like just Jello, really. It's not Jello though. It has a big fancy name that is in my what do you call that? In my other videos. But anyway, it's hydrogel. There you go. It's hydrogel, but there's a more scientific name for it. Anywho, it's a crystal that absorbs 400 times its weight in water and adds moisture to your soil. So if you have, a dry soil, and I don't know many people who do, but if you just don't want your roots to be in shock because they can't reach water, this will always make sure that there's water there. It's a good replacement for like sphagnum moss because it absorbs 20 times its weight in water. And this is nice too, the long fibered stuff, because roots really like to grow in it. This is really an experiment for me, but I've seen it has wide applications in agriculture, so I'd like to check it out myself. So usually this is kind of how I mix up some soil. I do just potting soil, regular potting soil. I do the perlite. I do orchid bark. You can see a little bit of horticultural charcoal. I don't think I have any pumice in here, but I think this orchid bark mix was supposed to have it, and I probably just ran through it. So anywho, this is cinnamon. I like to use cinnamon. It has antifungal properties. Also, sphagnum moss has antifungal properties. It's naturally a little bit acidic. I've got peat moss in here, which is basically like powdered sphagnum, but when something's newly rooting, it likes that too. It's got a little bit of fertilizers in there to help it grow. So I am gonna get to it. I'm gonna put this in here, just like that. So satisfying. And what that's gonna do is make it so that Miss Calathea here, her roots don't go into so much shock when I put her in her new soil. I brought a spray bottle mister with me. That way I can moisten the soil whenever I'm ready. Brought a little hand file with me, just a little baby one. And I'm gonna give this all a good mix. Okay, so here's my little Jello. It's so wiggly. Okay, so I'm pretty much mixed up. What I'm gonna do with this sphagnum is I like to use it, this sphagnum here is, I like to use it at the bottom. I like to kind of mix it in a little bit at the top too. It just helps me retain moisture, honestly. Maybe I just do it for luck. Okay. So the weird part, I'm just gonna remove this soil first before I dump all her dirt out. There's a difference between soil and dirt. Dirt is dead, and soil is an organic material for a plant to grow in. So this Calathea Jungle Cat has been growing in this container for about 2 years, and I'm kind of worried about her roots because she was kind of just sitting in this pot that doesn't have any drainage, which is fine because her nursery pot has drainage and I can always pull her out and check or bottom water her whenever I wanted to, but I didn't check. So here's what we got. We got a few dead leaves, and that gives us evidence of, you guessed it, a little bit of not so pretty roots. But we do have a lot of roots, which is nice. They're just dark brown, which is a little bit of an indication of root rot. We don't have any we do have a little bit of black roots, but we're gonna trim some of that up. I'm gonna start by taking her dead leaves off. I mean, you can see her other leaves look fine. She's just out of nutrients here. I'm really nervous to get into this because I've never really checked out the root system of a Calathea before. So I know that sounds kind of crazy because I love plants, but I haven't dug into one of their bulbs yet. And this is a lot of roots, guys. Like, I don't even know how to get in here so well. I think it's like rooted all the way around the pot. Okay, so I just rinsed her roots off outside. Hi, baby. Come on, honey. So I just rinsed her roots outside, and you can see that she has plenty of healthy roots, but there are a bunch that look kind of black. So I think that's where she was so root bound. And then over here where I thought it was just a lot of root boundness, it's actually it is root boundness. I thought it was bad soil, like it was compacted. It's her roots. So we're gonna put her in some new soil. She's had plenty of spots here that just look like they wanna grow, you know, plenty of healthy roots. So let's see what happens when I get her in her new growing medium here. I like to put sphagnum moss in the bottom of my pot just to kind of act as a bit of a drainage, like not stop dirt from getting through the holes kind of deal. That's what I use it for. So I don't use rocks or anything. I think that raises the water table. And sphagnum absorbs water, so if I've got too much water in my pot, it'll absorb some of it. And so will this jelly stuff that I put in there. I'm really excited about it. So I'm gonna put just a little bit of soil in here at a time so that I get her roots comfortable. It seems like her previous soil wasn't very well draining. And even though she's a Calathea and likes very moist soil, she likes to dry out a little bit too. That's probably why her roots were growing all the way around her pot rather than like focusing in the center of her pot. So that's an interesting notice. If your roots are going all the way around the pot, the center is where the moisture is usually held. On the pot, the center is where the moisture is usually held. The edges usually dry out first, so that means that the whole time the Calathea was looking for a little bit more dryness. So she was, as most plant people do when they're new, overwatered. So she was a little bit overwatered. and in old soil. So the top generally dries out faster. So I like to throw a little bit of sphagnum moss on top so I know as a reference when I last watered it, because sphagnum turns a different color when it's wet versus dry. And it just kind of looks different. It's easier for me to tell if sphagnum's wet versus dry, but also note that this could be a house to fungus gnats if you're not careful. So don't overwater your plants or you're just asking for it. I'm misting the top of it now because I just want the sphagnum to lay down nice and neat. I could have pre-moistened it before, but you know, I did not think that far ahead before doing it. So I'm just trying to lay the sphagnum in here nice and neat on top of the pot rather than it kind of like being wild and out of the pot. So I put cinnamon in my soil. I'm gonna say it again, cinnamon. Because cinnamon has antifungal properties, and I just told you guys I put sphagnum moss in the bottom and in the top of my mix here, which is a good house for fungus gnats. So I like to put cinnamon in there to kind of ward off fungus gnats. I also like to use systemic granules in my soil mix, and I also water with a systemic, I think it's called 8 or 7 or 8, one of those numbers. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, here's my beauty, my Calathea Jungle Cat. So hopefully she wakes up nice and happy tomorrow and lets her leaves back down. If she keeps them up, she's definitely in shock. She probably will be in shock for the next few days. I just changed her whole root system. She's got a whole bunch of new soil with nutrients in it that she hasn't had access to for a long time. She now has some orchid bark in here, which is gonna help her have a little bit more aeration. She has more perlite in here before. This was the previous soil. I mean, there's really no perlite in here at all. From what I can tell, it's like a little bit of orchid bark every now and then, but it's mostly just potting soil and it's so wet. There's some kind of green fertilizer pearls in here. I don't know what those are. Those are probably from when I bought it. But I'm very happy and comfortable with what I've got going on in here. I think she's gonna thrive, especially in my care how I water my plants. So she's got a little bit more of that ability to dry out in between because of the orchid bark and the perlite. And she also has those crystals in there, those gel crystals in there, which will let her have access to water whenever she wants it, and sphagnum moss, which will also give her that access whenever she wants it. That way I don't overwater her. Ooh. And that's all for today. I'm gonna slide her in her little pot. I'm gonna clean up my mess here that I've got going on. And we are back to business with her.